Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. The old photo album lay open on Corey's lap, its pages yellowed with age. She ran her fingers over a faded image of a young child with a bowl cut and oversized glasses, dressed in what appeared to be a boy's t-shirt and shorts. A lump formed in her throat as memories from 4 decades ago came flooding back. Corey leaned back in her armchair, closing her eyes as she allowed herself to be transported to a time when life seemed so much more complicated, yet simpler in many ways. The scent of her mother's perfume, the sound of her aunt's laughter, and the feeling of confusion and longing that had been her constant companions throughout childhood all swirled together in her mind. It had been a warm summer evening when everything changed. 7-year-old Corey, still known to the world as Kevin, had been playing in the backyard, lost in a game of make-believe. Her mother and aunt were inside, chatting over cups of coffee as they often did in the evenings. "Kevin, time to come in!" her mother's voice had called out, breaking through Corey's daydreams. Reluctantly, Corey had made her way back into the house, grass stains on her knees and twigs in her hair. As she stepped into the kitchen, her mother and aunt looked up from their conversation, smiling warmly. "Did you have fun out there, sweetheart?" her aunt asked, reaching out to pluck a leaf from Corey's unruly mop of hair. Corey nodded, suddenly feeling shy under their gaze. She fidgeted with the hem of her t-shirt, acutely aware of how different she felt from the boy they saw before them. "Why don't you go get cleaned up for dinner?" her mother suggested, rising from her chair to start preparing the meal. Corey nodded again and scampered off to the bathroom. As she washed her hands and face, she caught sight of her reflection in the mirror. The short hair, the boyish features, it all felt wrong, like a costume she couldn't take off. That night, after her mother and aunt had gone to bed, Corey crept out of her room and into her mother's closet. With trembling hands, she reached for a silky blouse and a flowing skirt. The fabric felt cool and smooth against her skin as she slipped them on, a stark contrast to the rough denim and cotton she usually wore. Heart pounding, Corey tiptoed to her mother's vanity and carefully applied a smudge of lipstick and a dusting of blush. The face that looked back at her from the mirror finally felt right, like the person she was meant to be. Lost in the joy of this moment, Corey didn't hear the soft footsteps approaching. It wasn't until she saw her mother's reflection in the mirror that she realized she'd been discovered. Panic seized her chest as she whirled around, eyes wide with fear. "I'm sorry," she stammered, tears already welling up. "I didn't mean to." But her mother's face held no anger, only concern and a dawning understanding. "Oh, sweetheart," she said softly, kneeling down to Corey's level. "Is this something you've wanted to do for a while?" Unable to speak through her tears, Corey could only nod. Her mother gathered her into a tight hug, stroking her hair gently. "It's okay," she murmured. "We'll figure this out together." The next morning, Corey woke to find her mother and aunt sitting at the kitchen table, deep in conversation. They fell silent as she entered the room, and for a moment, Corey feared the worst. "Come sit with us, sweetheart," her aunt said, patting the chair between them. Nervously, Corey climbed onto the seat, her legs dangling above the floor. Her mother reached out and took her small hand in hers. "We want to talk to you about last night," she began gently, "and about how you've been feeling." Corey's heart raced as she waited for the lecture, the punishment, the disappointment, but it never came. Instead, her mother squeezed her hand and said, "We love you, no matter what, and we want you to be happy and comfortable being yourself." Her aunt nodded in agreement. "We've been thinking, and we have an idea. How would you like to spend the next 6 weeks living as a girl? We can get you some new clothes, and you can explore what feels right for you." Corey's eyes widened in disbelief. "Really?" she whispered, hardly daring to hope. Both women nodded, smiling warmly. "Really," her mother confirmed. "This is a safe space for you to figure things out." That afternoon, they went shopping. Corey marveled at the array of colorful dresses, skirts, and blouses that now filled her closet. Her aunt helped her pick out hair accessories and showed her how to style her growing locks. As the weeks passed, Corey blossomed. She learned to walk in Mary Jane's, to twirl in sundresses, and to braid her hair. Her mother taught her about skincare and light makeup, while her aunt introduced her to the joys of painted nails and jewelry. But it wasn't just about the external changes. Corey felt a weight lift from her shoulders, a sense of rightness settling into her bones. She laughed more easily, smiled more freely, and for the first time in her young life felt truly comfortable in her own skin. One evening, as they sat on the porch swing watching the sunset, Corey's mother turned to her with a serious expression. "The 6 weeks are almost up," she said softly. "And now you have a big decision to make." Corey looked up at her, a question in her eyes. "You can go back to living as a boy if that's what you want," her mother explained. "Or if this is truly who you are, you can continue living as a girl. But I want you to understand that if you choose to stay as a girl, it's a permanent decision. We'll support you either way, but it's important that you're sure." Corey was quiet for a long moment, considering her mother's words. Then, with a certainty that belied her young age, she said, "I want to stay a girl. This is who I am." Her mother nodded, pulling her into a tight hug. "Then that's what we'll do," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You're my daughter, and I love you just as you are." As the memory faded, Corey opened her eyes, finding herself back in the present. She looked down at the photo album again, this time turning to a page near the back. There, smiling back at her, was a photo of a young girl with long hair and a bright, genuine smile. It was the first picture taken after her decision to live authentically. Corey traced the outline of the girl's face, her face, and felt a surge of gratitude for the love and acceptance that had shaped her journey. The road hadn't always been easy, but with the unwavering support of her mother and aunt, she had found the courage to be true to herself. She closed the album gently, setting it aside as she stood up. Walking to the mirror hanging in her hallway, Corey studied her reflection. The years had left their laugh lines around her eyes, strands of silver in her hair, but the essence of that young girl still shone through. With a smile, Corey straightened her blouse and smoothed her skirt. She had a busy day ahead, filled with meetings and deadlines, but she faced it with the confidence of someone who had fought hard to become herself. As she grabbed her keys and headed out the door, Corey sent a silent thank you to her younger self, to her mother, and to her aunt. Their courage and love had set her on a path to happiness, and she was determined to make the most of every moment. The sun was bright as Corey stepped outside, its warmth a reminder of those pivotal summer days so long ago. She took a deep breath, savoring the crisp morning air, and set off down the sidewalk with a spring in her step. Her day was filled with the usual bustle of work meetings with clients, phone calls to colleagues, and the constant ping of emails demanding attention. But through it all, Corey carried with her a sense of peace and purpose that had been hard-won over the years. During her lunch break, she found herself drawn to a small park near her office. Sitting on a bench, watching children play on the nearby playground, Corey couldn't help but reflect on her own childhood. She remembered the confusion and discomfort she had felt before her transition, the sense of being trapped in a body that didn't match who she truly was. It had been a lonely, isolating experience until that fateful night when her mother and aunt had discovered her secret and responded with love and understanding. Corey thought about the countless other children who might be going through similar struggles, perhaps without the support system she had been fortunate enough to have. It stirred something within her, a desire to make a difference. As she walked back to her office, an idea began to form. What if she could use her own experiences to help others, to provide support and guidance to families navigating the complex journey of gender identity? The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of inspiration and planning. By the time Corey left work that evening, she had the beginnings of a proposal for a support group, a safe space where children questioning their gender identity and their families could find resources, understanding, and community. Over the next few weeks, Corey threw herself into researching, networking, and laying the groundwork for her project. She reached out to local LGBTQ+ organizations, therapists specializing in gender identity, and other trans individuals willing to share their stories. As her vision began to take shape, Corey felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was no longer just living her truth. She was using her experiences to light the way for others. One evening, as she was putting the finishing touches on her proposal, Corey's phone rang. The familiar ringtone brought a smile to her face. It was her mother. "Hi, Mom," she answered warmly. "Hello, sweetheart." Her mother's voice came through, filled with the same love and acceptance it had always held. "How are you doing?" Corey leaned back in her chair, her eyes falling on the framed photo on her desk, a picture of her, her mother, and her aunt from her college graduation day. "I'm doing great, Mom. Actually, I've been working on something I'd like to tell you about." As Corey explained her plans for the support group, she could hear the pride in her mother's voice. "Oh, Corey," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so proud of you. You've always had such a big heart." They talked for a while longer, catching up on family news and making plans for an upcoming visit. As they said their goodbyes, Corey felt a familiar warmth in her chest, the unconditional love that had carried her through the most challenging times of her life. Hanging up the phone, Corey turned back to her computer, ready to put the final touches on her proposal. As she worked, memories of her journey flowed through her mind, each one a stepping stone that had led her to this moment. She remembered the first day of school after her transition, nervously smoothing down her new dress as she walked into the classroom. The teacher, who had been briefed on the situation, had simply smiled and said, "Welcome, Corey. Find a seat wherever you'd like." There had been curious looks and whispered questions from her classmates, of course. But with the unwavering support of her mother and aunt, Corey had faced each challenge with growing confidence. She thought about her first crush in high school, a kind-hearted boy named Michael who had asked her to the winter formal. Corey had agonized over whether to tell him about her past, fearing rejection. When she finally gathered the courage to share her truth, Michael had simply taken her hand and said, "You're amazing, Corey. Thank you for trusting me." There had been difficult moments, too, the occasional cruel comment, the struggle to find doctors who understood her unique medical needs, the fear of violence that many trans individuals face. But through it all, Corey had persevered, drawing strength from the love of her family and the knowledge that she was living authentically. As she finished her proposal and sent it off to the local community center, Corey felt a sense of excitement and anticipation. She was opening a new chapter in her life, one where she could use her experiences to make a positive impact on others. The next morning, Corey woke early, filled with nervous energy. Today was the day she would present her proposal to the community center's board of directors. As she got ready, carefully selecting a professional yet stylish outfit, she couldn't help but think about how far she had come. Standing in front of her full-length mirror, Corey smoothed down her navy blue blazer and adjusted her pearl necklace, a gift from her aunt on her 30th birthday. Her reflection showed a confident, accomplished woman, but in her mind's eye she could still see echoes of the scared little boy she had once been. "You've got this," she told her reflection, taking a deep breath to calm her nerves. The drive to the community center was a blur of rehearsed talking points and deep breaths. As Corey walked into the building, her heels clicking against the polished floor, she felt a mix of anxiety and determination. The board members were already seated around a large table when Corey entered the conference room. She shook hands with each of them, introducing herself with a warm smile and a firm handshake. As she began her presentation, Corey's nerves melted away, replaced by passion for her project. She spoke about the challenges faced by transgender youth and their families, the importance of early support and acceptance, and her vision for a comprehensive program that would provide resources, counseling, and community. "This isn't just about helping children transition," Corey explained, her voice steady and clear. "It's about creating a supportive environment where every child can explore their identity freely and safely. It's about educating families, schools, and the wider community. It's about saving lives." As she spoke, Corey could see the board members leaning in, their expressions moving from polite interest to genuine engagement. When she finished her presentation, there was a moment of silence before the questions began. The board's inquiries were thoughtful and probing, covering everything from funding to potential community pushback. Corey answered each one with honesty and confidence, drawing on both her personal experiences and the extensive research she had done. As the meeting drew to a close, the board chair leaned forward, a small smile playing on her lips. "Ms. Henderson," she said, "I think I speak for all of us when I say that your proposal is not only impressive but also deeply needed in our community. We'd like to move forward with implementing your program." Corey's heart soared as the reality of the moment sank in. Her dream was becoming a reality. She would have the opportunity to make a real difference in the lives of children and families facing the same challenges she had experienced. As she left the community center, walking on air, Corey's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from her mother. "How did it go, sweetheart? Your aunt and I are on pins and needles." With happy tears in her eyes, Corey typed out a reply. "They said yes! Can I come over tonight to celebrate?" The response came almost immediately. "Of course! We'll open that bottle of champagne we've been saving. We're so proud of you, Corey." That evening, as Corey sat in her childhood home, clinking glasses with the two women who had supported her unconditionally through every step of her journey, she felt a profound sense of gratitude and purpose. Her aunt raised her glass in a toast. "To Corey," she said, her eyes shining with pride, "who has always had the courage to be herself and now will help others find that same courage." As they celebrated late into the night, sharing memories and dreams for the future, Corey knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in her life. She had found a way to turn her struggles into strength, her pain into purpose, and she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the months that followed, Corey threw herself into bringing her vision to life. She worked tirelessly to set up the support group, collaborating with mental health professionals, educators, and other members of the trans community. The first meeting was held on a crisp autumn evening. As Corey stood at the front of the room, looking out at the faces of parents and children who had come seeking support and understanding, she felt a mix of emotions: nervousness, excitement, and above all, a deep sense of responsibility. "Welcome, everyone," she began, her voice warm and steady. "I'm Corey, and I'm so glad you're all here. I know that for many of you, coming tonight took a lot of courage. I want you to know that you're not alone on this journey." As the meeting progressed, Corey shared her own story, watching as looks of recognition and hope dawned on the faces of both parents and children. When she opened the floor for questions and discussion, the room came alive with voices sharing experiences, fears, and dreams. One mother, tears in her eyes, stood up to speak. "I didn't know what to do when my child told me they felt different," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "I was scared and confused. But being here tonight, hearing your story and seeing all these other families, it gives me hope. Thank you for creating this space." As the weeks turned into months, the support group grew and evolved. Corey brought in guest speakers, organized workshops, and even started a mentorship program pairing older trans individuals with younger ones who were just beginning their journeys. She watched with joy as friendships formed, as parents who had once been uncertain became fierce advocates for their children, and as young people who had felt isolated and afraid began to blossom into confident individuals, comfortable in their own skin. Of course, there were challenges along the way. Not everyone in the community was supportive of the program, and Corey had to navigate some difficult conversations and occasional protests. But she faced each obstacle with grace and determination, always keeping in mind the people she was trying to help. One particularly memorable moment came about 6 months after the group started. A teenage girl named Mia, who had been coming to meetings with her parents since the beginning, asked if she could speak to the group. With a trembling voice that grew stronger with each word, Mia shared her story of struggling with her identity, of the fear and confusion she had felt. Then, with a bright smile, she announced that she had started hormone therapy and was finally beginning to feel like her true self. The room erupted in applause and congratulations. As Corey watched Mia being hugged by her beaming parents, she felt a lump form in her throat. This was why she had started this group, to create a space where moments like this could happen, where lives could be transformed. Thanks for watching. Check out Patreon if you want to have early access to the other parts. If not, it will be online in a couple of days.